There's a sacred power in being broken open, because what's real always rises again. You don't see it at first. You only feel the unraveling, the quiet erosion of the version of you that once knew how to keep going. There is a particular exhaustion that lives beneath the skin, the kind that doesn't come from doing too much, but from holding yourself together for too long, from bracing, from gripping, from trying to belong to a life you've already outgrown. And there is a moment somewhere between silence and surrender where your soul stops pretending, not loudly, not dramatically, and just no more. The world calls it falling apart, but your nervous system knows it is a falling inward, a dissolving of what was never truly you. You begin to feel like a stranger inside your own life. The ambitions that used to move you go quiet. The roles you once wore like skin feel suddenly unbearable. Even your thoughts stop making promises they can't keep. You don't break, you unbecome, not by choice, but by inevitability. Something inside you is done being decorated, done being loyal to numbness, done shrinking around a life that no longer fits. People think collapse is the moment you're weakest, but collapse is often the first honest thing you've done in years. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be held together. You were meant to come apart when the shape of you is too small for the soul that's arriving. You are not failing, you are shedding. You are not lost, you are liquefying, the way a phoenix must dissolve before it remembers its wings. The self you built for survival is melting. The self you came here to live through is surfacing. And it is in this middle place, not the death, not yet the rebirth, but the holy undoing, that the world goes quiet enough for you to finally hear yourself. Not the voice you crafted for acceptance, but the one that was there before the world taught you who to be. The collapse is not the ending. It is the clearing. It is the body saying, make room, the real is coming. There comes a point in every awakening where the world you built can no longer hold the truth of who you are. Not because it was wrong, but because it was too small. The shattering is not the breaking of you, it is the breaking of the shell that once protected you. You feel it as disorientation, as restlessness beneath the ribs, as a quiet ache that keeps whispering, there is more than this. This is the stage where the mind tries to bargain, maybe I can fix it, maybe I can shrink again, maybe I can return to what I was. But something in you refuses, not loudly, not with rebellion, but with an ancient kind of knowing, a quiet, no, not anymore. And that no is sacred. Because before the rise, before the remembering, before the phoenix breathes light into its new wings, there is the moment where you can no longer lie to yourself. You stop performing the old self. You stop rehearsing the older version of your becoming. You stop trying to resurrect identities that have died in your hands. And this is where grief enters. Not grief for what was lost, grief for what you kept alive long after it was already gone. You grieve the mask, you grieve the pretending, you grieve the smaller home you kept forcing your spirit to live inside. And then something deeper cracks at the belief that you must earn rebirth, that you must justify who you're becoming, that you must apologize for no longer fitting into a life that was never built for your expansion. This is the holy break when truth outweighs attachment. You begin to feel the death of striving, the way a tree feels autumn long before the leaves ever fall. You feel the undoing in your bones. Like a long exhale you didn't know you'd been withholding from yourself. There is pain here, but it is clean pain. Honest pain. Pain that exists only because your spirit is pushing through the seam of an old narrative. You are not shattering because you are weak. You are shattering because you are too alive to stay asleep. And yes, it feels like falling. But what if falling is not the opposite of rising? What if falling is the first motion of flight? The shattering is how the light gets back in. Because rebirth never begins with becoming more. It begins with no longer pretending to be less. The phoenix does not rise despite the ashes. It rises because of them. The death is not a punishment, but a doorway. The collapse was the loosening. The shattering is the opening. You are not breaking down, you are breaking open. This is the space between worlds. Not who you were, not yet who you are becoming. The ancient mystics call this the holy pause. The moment when the soul inhales before creation breathes itself forward again. It is a strange quiet, not empty, but spacious, like standing inside the echo of something that has already died while feeling the tremor of something sacred beginning to stir. This part of rebirth is rarely glamorous. It is not wings yet, it is not clarity yet, it is not the fire or the flight, it is the stillness. That teaches you how to hear your own becoming. Here the mind cannot lead. Here identity has dissolved too far to cling to. Here what once defined you has already slipped from your hands, and so you wait. Not with resignation, but with a softness you didn't know you were capable of. Something in you begins to bow. Not to a God outside yourself, but to the truth rising within yourself. You do not know where you're going, but you can finally feel what you will no longer return to. You begin to sense that the self is not something to build, but something to remember. That you are not on a journey of becoming more. You are on a journey of removing what is not you until only truth remains. This is the moment the illusion of control loosens. Not because you forced surrender, but because your soul has grown wiser than your fear. You start to notice that the longing you feel is not for a future version of you, but for a truer version of you. A you that feels like home. A you that breathes without bracing. A you that lives without shrinking. You can feel her, faintly, like a constellation blooming behind your ribs. Something luminous, something ancient, something that does not rise from trying, but from remembering. This is the threshold where self-repair becomes self-recognition. Where you do not chase healing, you return to wholeness. You begin to sense that no part of you was ever broken, only buried, that nothing in you is missing, only waiting to be seen. And in this waiting, something miraculous happens. You stop searching for the path, you start realizing you are the path. And the threshold, once terrifying, begins to feel like a birthplace. Not because anything has changed yet on the outside, but because something has already changed on the inside. The universe does not ask you to rise yet. First, it teaches you how to root inside your own light. Before flight comes habitation. Before illumination comes recognition. Before the phoenix ascends, it remembers it was never ashes, only embers waiting for breath. This is where becoming begins, not in motion, but in return. Not in striving, but in allowing. Not in force, but in truth. Rebirth does not arrive as a grand announcement. It comes the way dawn enters a sleeping room, quiet then undeniable, and it does not ask permission. It simply reveals what was always waiting beneath the dark. You do not decide to rise. You realize you already are, not as effort, as recognition. Something inside you begins to glow, not like fire, but like remembering. A warmth under the sternum, a loosening in the throat, a widening behind the eyes, as if the body finally steps out of exile and stands in the doorway of its own return. You begin to notice the subtle reversal. You are no longer chasing your future. You are magnetizing your becoming. You are no longer trying to hold yourself up. You are being held by an intelligence that breathes through you, as you, with you. This is where the light wakes. Not the light you perform for the world, but the light that was never extinguished, only covered. It does not flare. It expands. The soul does not shout to be found. It rings like a bell inside your bones. Awareness begins to flood the spaces where hiding once lived. Not as a spotlight, as sunrise. And suddenly, the old wound is not the thing you protect. It is the doorway where illumination slips through. You start to feel the difference between self-protection and self-return, between holding on and being held, between forcing the path and becoming the path. This is the moment of remembrance. You are not the story of the fall. You are what stands back up when the story burns away. Rebirth does not restore who you were. It restores who you are. The phoenix does not come back improved. She comes back revealed, not redesigned, recognized. Your soul does not evolve by achievement, but by unveiling. And as the light rises through you, not above you, not around you, but through you, you feel the truth finally click into place. You were never waiting for life to begin. Life was waiting for you to return. Not the coping self, not the masked self, not the survival self, the luminous one, the one made of sky and witness, the one made of awareness and breath, the one made of origin, not outcome. The rebirth is not loud. It does not need thunder to be undeniable. It arrives the moment you stop trying to earn the right to exist and simply let yourself be here. Not as effort, as essence. You are no longer becoming the light. You are remembering you are the light. And what rises now is not forward, but homeward. Rebirth is not the climax. Rebirth is the homecoming, where you no longer seek the divine. You feel it breathing as you, where you no longer chase alignment. You become incapable of abandoning yourself. This is the part of the journey the world never taught you, that becoming new is not an ascent. It is a return to origin, a remembering so ancient it feels like recognition. As if the soul nods and whispers, "Ah, there I am." There is a stillness now, not because life has quieted, but because you have stopped fighting yourself. This is what liberation actually feels like. Not fireworks, not triumph, but exhale. You stand inside yourself differently now. Not performing, not proving, not negotiating your own worth, just being dash. And that alone shifts the axis of your life, because when you return to your light, you don't have to convince anyone of who you are. Your existence becomes the proof. This is the whispered revolution, the sovereignty that does not roar because truth does not audition. You are no longer rebuilding your life from effort, but from resonance. You choose from alignment, not fear. You move from inner yes, not obligation. You meet the world from wholeness, not hunger. And what once felt like emptiness now feels like space, a clean altar for becoming. In this state, you begin to sense what was always real. Nothing was ever taken from you, only layers were peeled away. What rises now is not a new identity, but the undressed essence of your soul. You do not stand taller. You stand truer. You do not feel louder. You feel rooted. You do not glow because you were polished. You glow because you are unhidden. The phoenix in you is not a flame. She is luminous. She rises not through conquest, but through clarity. She carries no sword, only self. She does not need to reclaim her place. She remembers she was the place all along. And it is here in the softest return that the truest power arrives. You are done abandoning yourself just to be understood. You are done dimming just to be digestible. You are done shrinking just to be safe. You are no longer surviving your story. You are authoring it, not from the ashes, but from the origin light that was waiting behind your ribs. This is the wild grace of starting over. Not beginning again from emptiness, but beginning again from embodiment. Not from fracture, but from fullness. Not to become someone new, but to finally live as who you truly are. Repeat this mantra to integrate it into your soul. I do not rise to become. I rise to remember what is real cannot be burned, only revealed.